Go home. Stop this absolute blunder. You killed enough people. You leveled enough of Tehran. You have 15,000 strikes. Go home. You killed their top leadership like last summer when they were in the midst of negotiating. Go home. Stop already. Stop trying to draw other people and other countries into this. It's enough.
Jeffrey Sachs just pleaded with Donald Trump to go home, ditch Israel, end this war, stop it from escalating as he gets into, in this conversation with Judge Napolitano, the political and economic ramifications of this war, and the latest thoughts that there might be an attempt to try to draw in NATO deeper into this conflict. Yeah, that's right. The organization that Trump once rightly called a remnant of the Cold War that should have been dismantled long ago. Now you have Trump encouraging NATO to get involved. Can't make this up. Let's check out what he has to say. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
How easily can Netanyahu's and Trump's war get totally out of control?
Well, we are out of control because the Middle East is ablaze. Not only the Gulf is ablaze, that means Iran and the neighboring countries, including Bahrain, Oman, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. But because of Netanyahu and Trump and past American presidents, wars are raging actually from Libya across Africa, including Sudan and Somalia. They're raging in Lebanon. Of course, a genocide continues in Gaza. Slaughter continues in the West Bank. There's war in Syria. There is a continued war in Iraq and Yemen. And now there's the carpet bombing by the United States of Iran. So we have the Middle East ablaze. In addition, we have the war that Trump was going to end in a phone call and continues to help stoke, and that is Ukraine. Every word of his, every statement and promise turned out to be false. And we have the wars in the Western Hemisphere, in Venezuela, which is still an ongoing war zone, despite what you hear, and in an imminent attempt by the United States to overthrow the government of Cuba. And Trump met with several right-wing Latin American leaders and talked about new military operations throughout the Western Hemisphere. Our government is out of control. There is no constitutional order, and there is no sense in what is happening. And the wars are going to spread because of a absolutely deranged president, an out of control CIA and military, and absolutely crazy allies of the United States, starting with Israel, which is certainly the greatest rogue state on the whole planet.
Yeah, you can just put quotes around allies like Israel. It sure seems to be more of what John Mearsheimer calls an albatross around the neck of the United States, encouraging more forays into empire building and global domination and hegemony across the world than it does to serve the interests of the United States by this attachment. It's the United States bankrolling this genocidal regime, as Jeffrey Sachs rightly says, has continued to kill Palestinians in Gaza since the ceasefire. I think it's something like 1,000 of them. Dave DeCamp, my friend at antiwar.com, is covering that very thoroughly. And Israel is taking this opportunity as Trump launches the regime change effort in Iran to attack one of its neighbors, to attack Lebanon, carve up the south of Lebanon in another foray into destabilizing that country, which they've invaded something like 5 or 6 major times, to carve up the territory, expand the West Bank settlements, etc. This is a friend of the United States that calls its 8th front in their war, according to Netanyahu, against the United States people, an information war against us. That's the eighth front of their regional war. And you have our political class just saddled up right there with them, helping them in whatever they want. Their ambitions go counter to the interests of the American people. And that's why the American people have lost faith in Israel. They just have. Every poll reflects that, especially among young people.
What happens if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed for a substantial period of time? And what would that substantial period of time be?
Well, we already see the cascading effects of oil well above $100 a barrel and continuing to rise. This will be, as the International Energy Agency has declared, the greatest supply side disruption of hydrocarbons, oil, and gas in history. From previous such disruptions, such as two that occurred in the 1970s, the consequences for the world economy will be absolutely dire, if not catastrophic, because oil prices will continue to soar. Oil production in the Middle East will cease, both because there's no storage or shipping capacity and because the fields, both in Iran and in the Gulf, are being destroyed by attack. So we're both attacking the physical infrastructure, and fields are being shut in because there's nothing to do with the possible production. So we're in for an economic crisis of massive proportions. The extent of this crisis will depend on whether the world tells Netanyahu and Trump, stop breaking the entire world, go home, and stop your games.
Yeah, and I hope that'll happen. If anything, I think Arab nations that the U.S. wants close ties with, like the UAE, like Saudi Arabia, actually get to Trump somehow and say, shut this thing down, because we exactly don't want this in our region. We've had too many decades of this, and we want entrepreneurial pursuits to flourish. We want business to flourish, commerce, and maybe even tourism someday to the Middle East to flourish. You are seeing that in some places in the Middle East, but that's what I hope the pressure campaign against Trump is. But the problem is that the Israel lobby always outmaneuvers every other country, every other alliance that the U.S. entertains. So much so that it's just completely obvious. It's embarrassing if you're a United States citizen to see this foreign country rob us of sovereignty, enact its own specialized carved out lobby that doesn't have to register under FARA, and then all this excuse making for why somehow it's America first to do this, to engage in this, to shut down 25% of the world's energy economy, causing global economic reverberations throughout the region and the world. I'm sorry, it's just not palatable. Americans can't accept this, and they won't when they go up to gas stations and find shortages and rising costs. And you're already seeing that could play out like it did in the 70s, potentially. A lot of people watching this might have been old enough to realize what that was like. And you're exacerbating and encouraging that exact type of crisis.
If that happens, this crisis will be very serious and costly, but not devastating. If it doesn't happen, then the consequences will be devastating.
Who or what could stop the Israelis and the Americans from this catastrophe, the carpet bombing of Tehran and the expansion of the war?
Well, first, the Arab countries could, in principle. They house American military bases. They should, if they had the guts, but they don't, but they should tell the Americans, leave. Go home. You're not giving us security. You're destroying our security. You're destroying our countries. You're destroying our economy. That's what they should do. That by itself would be enough to stop, because the U.S. ability to project power in the region depends on the militarization by the United States of the region. And that is also the same reason why these countries won't do what I just said. They're basically vassal states of the United States, which is very sad for them, very sad for us, because we suffer the consequences of the resulting Trump megalomania and U.S. government megalomania.
Yeah, totally agree with that. That is exactly what you have at play here. All these U.S. bases in the region, in the Persian Gulf. You know, the meme is that we put all of our base, or they put their country, Iran put their country way too close to all the U.S. bases in the region. That's exactly what's at play here. And many of these countries are basically, you know, coerced into it for good relations with the United States. The United States promises some protection of their countries if we can house their bases there to support what? To support Israel, to support the Israel First agenda, the Greater Israel Project. That's why you have the biggest air base in Qatar, you know, some of the biggest naval bases in and around the Arabian Peninsula, in Yemen and Bahrain and Oman. That's why you have all of these places that the United States projects warfare from. If it really were to be a massive effort among these states working in concert to shut down the bases, actually stand up for their own people that don't exactly want the U.S. empire invading their country, having a large presence in their country, it may be able to turn the tides. But their political leadership sees benefit in tying itself to the United States for protection. But eventually you're going to find that the United States doesn't care about protecting them. They only care about protecting Israel. And China and Russia and India will be further galvanized to support countries like Iran. That's exactly what you're getting here. It's a global catastrophe, and it's every manifestation of the entangling alliances that are so destructive of every society and all the best founders and Ron Paul warned about. That's what you have here. Monetary-metals.com/vault for monetary metals, because if you care about liberty and sound money, then you probably already understand why gold matters. It's preserved purchasing power over thousands of years while governments debase paper currency. But most people think about gold as something you store away in a vault and forget about, but that just means your gold sits there doing nothing. And that's where Monetary Metals steps in. They built a system where you can earn yield on your gold paid in gold. So instead of selling your gold for dollars to invest, you can keep your wealth in gold and still earn a return. Depending on the opportunity, clients can earn up to about 4% yield in gold paid in more gold. Monetary Metals offers gold owners a way to put their metal into productive use instead of relying on the fiat financial system. It's the perfect hedge against inflation. So if you already own gold or you're thinking about owning some, this is well worth looking into. Monetary-metals.com/vault to learn how you can start earning a return on your gold. Monetary Metals has my full enthusiastic endorsement. It's the ultimate lifeline to protect yourself against the corrupt financial system. Now let's get back into the conversation.
The other way to do this is for the major powers of the world that are not the United States or its vassal states, and that today is largely defined as the so-called BRICS countries, should, in a unified way, stand up clearly and say to the United States and Israel, stop. Enough of this tragic absurdity. It's tragic because it's devastating. It's absurd because a child would not have gotten into this mess that we're in, but Trump is less than a child in the logic of his thinking. We have trapped the entire world in a disaster to the point where Mr. Trump is appealing to China to come bail us out, appealing to other countries, threatening NATO. If you don't help us, then you're going to be in dire trouble. The man is a loon. I'm sorry to say it. And he got the whole world into this absolute debacle. And now, as his usual wont is, he's demanding everyone else get him out of this debacle. Well, there is a way out of this debacle, and that is for Trump and Netanyahu to go home and just shut up for a while, honest to God. All they're doing is creating murder. All they're doing is leveling countries and threatening the whole world economy for nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's for Israel's ambitions, if anything, and that's not exactly at the top of the minds of most Americans. And what you can see here unfolding is a new Cold War of sorts. I think we saw this most evidently in the proxy war versus Russia, starting essentially in 2014 when the US helped overthrow the Yanukovych government. All these people saying Zelensky's a beacon for democracy, a champion of democracy, when you had the United States participating via Victoria Nuland and Jeffrey Pyatt talking openly about it, the coup against Yanukovych to insert a more bellicose government toward Russia. You had the civil war play out in the Donbass first and then through the Russian invasion for the next, what was it, 12 years at this point, essentially going on. That started a new Cold War of sorts. And then you have these BRICS countries, not so right now, but maybe moving in the direction of a new Warsaw Pact to counter NATO, the US's military arm in its empire building projects in Europe. And these countries are not part of a military alliance right now, these BRICS countries, but they may eventually become so. Why wouldn't you at this point? It'd be hard to blame them. And alternatively, they could become an alliance to develop a new reserve currency to challenge the dollar and maybe overtake the dollar as the world reserve currency. And that would be serious disaster for the US. But here you have the US-Israeli warfare empire pushing them in that direction. It seems like it's almost an inevitability at this point.
So
Sure.
this is how it could stop.
Yeah.
It could stop simply because it makes no sense. And it could stop if the Arab countries could somehow overcome their vassalage. And it could stop if the big countries, which is what I'm hoping for is the most realistic path, stand up as the only adults that we have right now and say, that is President Xi and Prime Minister Modi and President Putin and President Lula and President Ramaphosa and other leaders stand up and say, no, you cannot do this on your whims and your fun of bombing, as Donald Trump has said. And Netanyahu, as he declares it, his dream of 40 years. The man is a madman. We have to say it honestly, because we're really in trouble right now.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been Netanyahu's grand ambition for basically almost my entire lifetime, since at least the 90s. He's been talking openly about Iranian regime change, propagandizing Americans in English to accept this with cartoonish bomb diagrams that they're close to a nuclear weapon, they're days, weeks, months away, they're negative years away. It's all propaganda to steer us in this direction so they can take over territory in their vicinity, right now attacking southern Lebanon, while you have U.S. resources poured into this war and U.S. servicemen dead in this war. That's what you have.
Here's President Trump yesterday. I was saddened to hear this, but not surprised. This is almost remarkable. Suggesting NATO, as you just mentioned this, Professor Sachs, should get involved helping the United States and Israel. Chris, cut number 9.
We're always there for NATO. We're helping them with Ukraine. It's got an ocean in between us. Doesn't affect us, but we've helped them. It'd be interesting to see what country wouldn't help us with a very small endeavor, which is just keeping the strait open. That, by comparison, is a small. It's small because Iran has very little firepower left.
It's unbelievable. We do something totally insane, makes no sense. Why don't they come to help us? And it requires nothing. So why don't you do it, Mr. Trump? Because you know that what you're saying is not true. You have gotten the world into a total disaster. You, not NATO, not China, who you called for aid, you. And it's up to you, Mr. Trump, to end the disaster that you and Netanyahu caused. And it's easy. Go home.
Yeah, simple solution, go home. Exactly right. I want the 2016 Trump back that was talking about how NATO should be withdrawn from the US, that it was an entangling alliance that should have been disbanded at the end of the Cold War. Where's that Trump? Well, he was just co-opted by the military-industrial complex, the Israel lobby, the Ukraine firsters, the war maniacs, the bomb makers, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, etc., General Dynamics, to get involved in these catastrophes at the loss of American lives, at the cost of debt, and at the cost of inflation to Americans. But go home, as Jeffrey Sachs said. That would be the solution. Stop this now. He's already declared victory 5 times and still he fights on. Yeah, the U.S. is so victorious in Iran that you have the younger, more radical son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in power now. Yeah, real success.
Stop this absolute blunder, which is bringing down the whole world. And the world will know who is bringing down the world economy and who is lighting the fuse to World War III. It's you. Don't talk about NATO coming to your aid when you've done something so stupid that it can't even be explained. It's enough. Go home. You killed enough people. You leveled enough of Tehran. You have 15,000 strikes. Go home. You killed their leader. You killed their religious leader. You killed the leader that said, we don't want nuclear weapons. You killed that one. You killed their top leadership, like last summer when they were in the midst of negotiating. Go home. Stop already. Stop trying to draw other people and other countries into this. It's enough.
Yeah, I hope he takes Jeffrey Sachs's advice. Something tells me I don't think he will, though. It seems like Trump has crossed a Rubicon here. He already lost so much political capital over Epstein, over spending, over discarding the America First mantra that he purported to support, standing with the neocons Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and Laura Loomer. He's crossed that Rubicon. We have vernacular in the poker world. He's pot committed to this Israel First regime change operation. But you can see that an impasse is being created here. It's not like the regime change has been successful. Like I said, you already have the son of Ali Khamenei, Mojtaba Khamenei, who's more radical by all accounts, whose family members died, I think including his wife and his son in the strike against Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who it did take out. You have a galvanization effect of Iranian nationalists rallying behind this war on the Iranian side, not to overthrow the regime. It wasn't like the Zionists were telling the truth about the propaganda. Hey, they're on the cusp of overthrowing this regime. That's what these protests mean. It didn't mean that. And even if it did mean that on some level, you have a war of choice, a strike, a preemptive strike by Israel and the United States again against Iran that have galvanized those people to support their country against who they see as a foreign invader, a foreign empire builder. That's what they see. And my biggest fear is that this impasse will eventually be met with ardent Zionists and neocons, I repeat myself, convincing Trump to put American men and women on the ground there, like what was done in Iraq, with the same propaganda lined up to support it. We've heard it. We'll be greeted as liberators, weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons that we told you were totally dismantled 8 months ago at Fordo and Natanz and Isfahan. That's the propaganda they're supporting to keep this war going under escalation. And it does not serve Americans whatsoever. This is a preposterous, treasonous policy that no Americans supported outside of a tiny niche of neocons that have clung to Israel and the military bomb makers for their entire lives. No one voted for Trump in the general electorate for that, for this Israel First Iranian regime change operation. No. They voted for no new wars, get out of the Middle East, cut spending in Doge, end the war in Ukraine, stop all the regulatory madness that's costing Americans, destroying our business. Stop focusing outward on empire. Focus inward on the American people that you purport to serve. But we're not getting that from Trump. We didn't get that from Biden. We didn't get that from Obama. We didn't get that from Bush. They're all charlatans and frauds that speak to the electorate as an electoral vehicle. Then once they gain power, they engage in the same wars. You're not going to vote yourself out of this on a federal level. I hate to say that. I'd love to see Thomas Massie or someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene run for presidential office just for the messaging, just to get the real truth out from people that actually have virtue, so rare as it is in Washington. But at the same time, they'd be filtered through a nomination process and be shut down there. We need an explosion of education, pushing back from the periphery, pushing back from the states against the feds to disrupt and nullify these egregious mandates and even wars. You can support Defend the Guard legislation in the states to withhold National Guard units from being sent into military theaters without a war declaration, which the U.S. hasn't had since World War II. That would strong arm the president in some ways in effective manners that can stop the war machine from rolling on. And my friend Daniel McAdams always says that war propaganda greases the wheels of the war machine. And that's what you're seeing weaponized against the American people from the Israel lobby, from this administration that's tied into the Israel lobby. And that's what you get. So we'll see if there's an off-ramp. I hope it's taken, but I'm with Sachs, man. Shut this down. I hope it's shut down. I'm not optimistic about that prospect, but I hope it happens. But you guys let me know what you think is going to happen in the comments down below. Is this going to escalate? Will there be a ground force? Will Trump somehow declare victory and walk away? What's going to happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Judge Napolitano. Great segment, great interview, great guest, of course. And if you like this video, please consider joining as a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button down below. If you do that, you can gain immediate access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. You'll be able to see those members only videos right away. There's many for you to watch usually at all times if you do that. Also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. That'll send you out to a website. You just plug in your email at the top of that site, and I'll send you a full free copy of that book, no obligation whatsoever. And look, I have a few demands from the sinister Israel First wartime regime, and I won't apologize for them. No more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.